everyone. Up next, we have Chloe with us on the webinar with us. She's going to talk about hacker rights. We're really great. We're glad that she is with us on the call today. She's going to be sharing her experience with the hacker rights and what moment she's working on. So over to you, Chloe.
Thank you for having me. It's always great to see you, Madonna. Hi, everyone. My name is Chloe, and I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit about hacker rights, and I'll give you some takeaways as well. I may be losing my voice here and there. I'm dealing with allergies, but I have my chai with me, and I have my water with me. So I am ready to get going. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Madonna, we're good to go?
Absolutely, Chloe. Yes, thank you.
No problem. I'm going to turn off my camera in the meantime, but I'll turn it back on after I finish for Q&A.
Absolutely. So I'm going to be taking the questions once your session is done, and we'll pass it over to you so that it's a smooth transition. And if you have any questions, please give a shout and I'm around.
Sounds great. All right. Oops, that is the wrong button. Hold on. Great. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen.
Perfect. Let's do this. All right. Today we're going to talk about hacker rights. So we're going to touch on various different things. But first, let me tell you a little bit about myself. And if you see in the photo on the right side, you might see a familiar face. So I'm the VP of strategy over at Point 3 Security. And when I'm not doing that, I'm an ethical hacker advocate. What does that mean? That means I try to push for rights for hackers, and then also I try to help out the community as much as possible, basically for us to come together and to share information, because that's the most amazing thing about the InfoSec community, is that we always come together to share things. When I'm not doing that, I'm the president and co-founder of WOSEC, and I run the SF Bay Area chapter. And when I'm not doing that, I'm also the founder of Women Hackers, which is a virtual online community for non-binary and women. And people hack at all different levels, and we do CTFs and workshops and whatnot. So if you are out there and that sounds like something you want to join, DM me on Twitter and I will get you in. Other than that, I am the parent to Sherlock, which is that cute little puppy at the very bottom of the page on the right side. Sherlock is a little Shiba Inu. She acts like a cat, a fox, and a dog all in one. And when I'm not doing that, I just love to read a lot. So I created the Hacker Book Club. And what that means is that we read books from people in the community, and we have them as guests for our book club meetings. Right now we're doing Women in Tech with Tara Wheeler, which is amazing. And then next month we'll be touching on Tribe of Hackers with Marcus Carey. So I'm very thrilled for this. All right, so let's go over the agenda. And yes, there will be plenty of puppy photos because it's my baby, in my own opinion. We're going to dive a little bit in the background, what's going on in the landscape, also why we need rights in the first place. And then we're going to talk about how do we influence the public? So how do we get them to agree changing things around? And then we're going to dive into three parts, because to influence the public, you need the media, you need organizations and legislation to be able to do next steps. So let's first dive into what is a hacker. Well, one of the things is whenever you Google search what is a hacker, you tend to get this black hooded figure in front of a computer, usually in a basement. It's really dark, and sometimes they're wearing, a ski mask, which is annoying because the first thing I want to do is put on a ski mask and just be very itchy. It really helps find any vulnerabilities. But also the problem with this whole imagery is that I think people have forgotten that you can just cover your camera, so you don't need a ski mask anymore. So overall, in general, the public still doesn't understand who is a hacker, what they look like. And in reality, hackers come in all shapes and sizes. They look like you and me, and it's quite annoying because we're still battling this black hooded figure image, and it's putting us in a situation, into a box where we feel like we're being criminalized at times. And yes, hackers do wear different hats. I mean, you have your white hats, which are your ethical hackers, and then you have your black hats, which are malicious actors, in my opinion. But there are some that wear the gray hat, but there's too many shades to cover, so I will not be doing that right now. But what is an ethical hacker? And they work legally to keep data safe from other hackers. And by other hackers, it's the malicious actors, the ones with the black hats, by finding security vulnerabilities that can be mitigated. And this person usually has the system owner's consent or is staying within a scope. And sometimes they're actually employed directly to look into the situation. And sometimes they are paid or they just get thank yous. But in general, the problem is that when you type in ethical hackers and criminal hackers, if you see the two slides right there, you see that it almost looks exactly the same. And this is bad because whenever there's people looking into hackers, they're always going to have this vision, which is unfortunate for many of us. And it's not just the imagery, it's also the words they're using. So they're still in the press using the term hacker as if they're doing something malicious. But in reality, it shouldn't be using that. They are cyber criminals. There's a difference. And that is one of the things we need to work on, is changing the words and letting press know, letting marketing knows to stop using the term hacker and start using malicious actors, or you can call them cyber criminals, because it's taking away the people that are doing everyday work to protect you and I. And like I said, how does this imagery impact us? Well, let's dive into it a little bit further. Well, the first thing to note is that we all have this part of our brain called the amygdala. Now, the amygdala sends the message of flight versus fight, and it's a survival instinct. So, but really what it is, it's categorizing people of who is like me, who is not like me, but also socially constructed ideas. So say, for example, you see someone walking down the street that has red hair. But at some point when you're younger, someone told you that people with red hair are dangerous. So every time you see someone with red hair, you go into immediate response of survival, which is, this is a threat because I was told it was a threat. So you may clutch your purse a little bit tighter, or cross the street, or lock the doors on your car because you see this person with red hair. So you automatically are assuming this person is a criminal. But the thing to note is that even though you have this impulse, it has to check in. And the amygdala, when it works, it's subconscious. But there's a part where we can consciously decide whether or not to act on that fear. So in the prefrontal cortex, which is the lit up part of the brain that you see in this image, basically checks in with the amygdala and seeing whether or not it needs to take an action. So this time you're like, okay, there's someone with red hair. Should I clutch my purse a little bit tighter just in case? Probably. And so then you send the signal back to amygdala to act on this threat. So you'll put your purse a little bit closer. Now, the problem is that a lot of these are socially constructed beliefs. They're not true. And what happens with that is that now you have these stereotypes, these beliefs that are harming another individual. Because the person with red hair just has red hair. It's not like they can change their hair color. I mean, granted, they can dye it, but that's who they are. And so now every time someone sees them and they see the red hair, they always see them as a criminal. And this is the situation that we're in, because the person is not a criminal, but you're hurting another individual and a group of people. So the most important thing to take away from this whole setup is that when we hear other people's stories, or when we're informed that we have a preconceived notion that is inaccurate, it can challenge things. And we get it usually through personal stories. So, say, for example, the person with red hair goes and makes a YouTube video sharing about how it hurts them knowing that because the kind of hair that they have, they're forever going to be stigmatized and they're always going to be seen by society that they're a threat. When in reality, we're hurting each other because we are a community and we work together. So we need to understand each other. And the only way we can do that is getting out of our comfort bubble and questioning every little thing we've ever been told at a young age. Because the person with red hair just has red hair at the end of the day, not a criminal. And so that's the thing we need to change. And one of the things with the press, what they've done with hackers is that they've put them in a box that they are these malicious people that wear a black hoodie that hack in the basement and they don't do anything good. And that's the thing we need to change because even to this day, if I get in a car like an Uber or a Lyft, or if I'm anywhere and I say I work with hackers, they immediately assume that I work with criminals and I'm a criminal too. And we need to change this belief because we're being prosecuted in return. And like I was talking about the prosecution thing, there are laws that have been formed to prevent good hacking. And these are copyright laws. These are also anti-hacking laws, and we'll dive into that in the next slide. But 60% of hackers today do not report vulnerabilities because of these laws and because of these beliefs that they're not true at all. And still to this day, 93% of Forbes Global 2000 don't have a vulnerability disclosure policy. That means they're not out there putting their email address. So if you do find a vulnerability, you know who to contact. There's many of us that spend hours, days, and then we give up because we already know that by submitting a vulnerability, it puts us at risk. But also the prosecuting of ethical hackers is a main thing of why 60% don't report the vulnerabilities. And not just that, but it also increases the number of malicious hackers. And you're probably wondering, how's that possible? Because think about it this way. If you have people that are going to be prosecuted for doing something good, but not getting paid on it and just getting thank yous, what is the point of them staying with the white hat when they could get paid more and still have to worry about the same things? So this is one of the things that I've been interviewing in the past 2 years, various different shades of hats in a way of asking them why they do what they do. And that was the number one thing that came up. The other thing is that when people want to go into hacking, they do a lot of Google searching and then they think that there's not too many positive ways of them to do anything in this space that's legal. So this is the other thing that we're really battling. But the laws today are so out of date. Think about it. We have anti-hacking laws, and in the US, we have the Computer Fraud Abuse Act, which was enacted in 1984 after Ronald Reagan watched War Games. Basically, he freaked out and was like, we need to do something about this. So basically, this is the main law that people are usually prosecuted when they go out of scope. Basically, you just don't have authorization. And anti-circumvention laws, these are the copyright laws. And copyright laws basically is the right to reverse. So, and this is one of those issues because we are dealing with two laws that hackers tend to be prosecuted on, the anti-hacking laws, anti-circumvention laws, and then we also have acceptable use policy. What is that exactly? Well, think about this. Every time you have an update on your phone, or for example, if you have an iPhone, you basically are telling you about your terms and conditions. Now, I don't know about you, but even though English is my first language, I don't want to read 40 pages of legal jargon. And it's one of those things that's really frustrating because a lot of us in this space, English is not our first language. And pretty much I would say the majority of us are not lawyers. So we're not able to really understand the ins and outs. So we have issues with that in a sense. But with improvements to legislation, we will then have all the Forbes Global 2000 having a vulnerability disclosure policy, We can have 100% of hackers reporting vulnerabilities without any fear. And we have laws that encourage good hacking instead of basically attacking good hacking and bad hacking. We have laws that encourage good hacking. No more prosecuting of ethical hackers. And at the end, it will motivate all of us to be more on the white hat end. So legislation is a critical piece, but legislation is the longest part that it will take to have done. And what I mean by that is that the two things that could really push for legislation to change is basically getting the public involved. That means we need the public, we need everyday people to know about what's happening right now. And how we can do that is working with the media and working with organizations. And organizations means companies, of course. Legislations is getting the politicians to create something for us. But the first step is that getting media to understand. So anytime you're talking with anyone in marketing or in the press, please use the term ethical hacker when it's something positive. And if they ever say anything negative about someone who is a malicious actor but uses the term hacker, correct them. Anytime they use imagery of someone in a black hoodie in a basement, correct them, because this imagery is still even being used in InfoSec still today. I was just at RSA and there's still booths using the imagery of this idea of this guy just in the basement with a hoodie on. And what's happening is that we need to understand each other and we need to actually work together to change this because we're hurting each other. And organizations play a huge role too, because many of them are afraid to post their email address because they're worried that people are going to bombard them with 0 days or finding so many flaws that they can't even fix them. Now, the problem with this idea is that I always try to tell organizations, I hate to break it to you, but even if you don't put it on the website, they're going to look for it anyway. And at the end of the day, what is smarter, right? Because you have ethical hackers that are going to report something without exploiting it, without using it, versus an attacker. There's not a single attacker out there that's going to ask for permission. There's not a single attacker out there that's going to be like, oh, I need to stay within scope. So this is the thing we need to come to realization is that we need to work together to prevent attacks. And we cannot get legislation without having media and organizations involved. So the media and organizations play a key role, but legislation also enforces media and organizations to really dive into what is a hacker and why we need to work with them. So the 5 needs at the end of the day is we need to change our language and imagery in InfoSec, even within InfoSec. So anytime you see any tweets or any posting on LinkedIn showing imagery that is false, correct them on it. Anytime they use words like a hacker who did something malicious, correct them on it. Say cyber criminal. We need to work with the media as well. So anytime you see a press thing, once again, do the exact same thing, call out. We need to also talk to everyone, tell them what's going on. And that means like anytime you're at a grocery store and you're in a very long line, start up a conversation with someone, start telling them about what's happening. It's just the whole thing is that we need the general public to see what's going on. And the thing is that within InfoSec, we tend to keep it within the community, but we really need to also go outside that because politicians are not going to take it up unless they see it as a wider situation. And we need organizations to have a vulnerability disclosure program. This is really important because by having something, we know who to contact. I want to know who to report a vulnerability because I already am taking a risky chance by reporting something. And we need to have conversations with representatives to talk to them about how our legislation is so old and we need to fix it. And the first step, how we do that is doing a petition. So after RSA, I did this talk there. It was an interactive one. And I created a petition. And there was a few people in the community that helped me with this. And I'm very thankful because this is the first step. There is a petition now on change.org that you can sign today. And the goal is to get more than 1,000 signatures. When we get more than 1,000 signatures, we get people to take action. Um, and so what this petition does, it talks basically what I just covered, which is about how we need to come together with organizations, with politicians, and the media. And last but not least, that we also have to commit with staying within scope and not exploit. Whenever we exploit something of a vuln that we found, it puts everyone at risk. So the thing is, we have to start baby steps. So this is one of the ways of doing it. So the main takeaways out of this entire talk is just note that ethical hackers do deserve protection and rights. Without them, we wouldn't be where we are today, and our loved ones wouldn't be protected. And unfortunately, we don't really talk about the situations of a breach not happening. We only hear about it when a breach does happen. But people are working all the time, all hours, to try to keep you and I safe. And so they deserve rights, they deserve protection, and we need to work together as a community to form how do we get there and what do we need. But also we need to change the current imagery and language. It's because it's really still misleading the public, and we're never going to get anywhere in legislation unless we get the public involved too. And remember, if we're going to change the public's perception, we need to update legislation, we need to update media and organizations. But last but not least, please sign and share the petition link right there. And if you go to my Twitter handle, it is the pinned tweet at the very top, so you can actually sign it yourself. But most importantly, like I said, it's always hard to start a change. And it usually takes more than one person to do that. It needs all of us. But to be able to start that, we have to look at ourselves. What are we doing that's harming this change from happening? And how are we helping it so far? And really think about that and ask, how can I make a difference here? How can I change the situation so then everyone in this community has a place where they don't have to fear and have insomnia or anxiety when they find something, that they can report something, so then they could still be that everyday hero. Overall, I just want to say thank you guys for existing. I know it's a troubled time right now, and I always try to end that with thank you for existing, to note that you're never alone. And if you feel isolated, alone right now, I know with COVID-19, it's extremely scary. Just note that you can reach out to me anytime you want. My DMs are completely open. And I'm right now currently working with a project with mental health hackers, which will support anyone in the community on a support hotline. So anyone can call in and be able to talk about what's going on with them. And just remember to reach out to loved ones at this time. It is a very scary time. And just note that you are not alone. And if you need anything, really do reach out to me. I'm here for you guys, and I want you to know that we're all in this together. And also thank you to Vidana and Infosec Girls for having me. I'll put my video back on now.
Thank you
And I'll
so
stop
much.
sharing.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Chloe, for joining us today again. It's really great to have you back on the show. We know that we had met earlier last year, and again having you with a different topic, which is very meaningful for the community, especially for the security community. Thank you so much for sharing your views with
Oh,
us.
thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and it's as you said rightly, that in this tough time we are all together. That's why we all are going virtual. We're trying to have all the digital meets rather than going in person and saying a hi. So it's better to say namaste and
Namaste.
and get going.